Out tonight. It's good to see such a great turnout here for Southend for the PFCC's annual district public meeting for the Southend district. So obviously I'll hand you over to Roger Hurst, Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner for Essex.
Hi, thanks Glenn. Glenn's from my comms team, and is, just so you know, we're being recorded and our answers will go and will be published online later, but we will not take your pictures. So if you don't want to be identified, you just don't need to say your name or whatever. Just ask the questions. You will remain anonymous. We're not worried about remaining anonymous. If you want to identify yourselves, you're very free to do so, but just to let you know that that's happening. As Glenn said, I'm Roger Hurst, I'm your Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner. I'll just go along the table and ask everyone to introduce themselves, and then I'll give a couple of minutes intro, but really what we're here for this evening is to hear your concerns, hear your questions. What we can answer this evening, we will answer this evening. What we can't answer this evening, we will take away. And we always publish the meeting notes online, so we'll publish additional responses if we need to. But if you have a particular question related to a particular case, you may want to take that offline later. That we're also going to hang around a bit afterwards. So if you have got something in particular that you want to raise related to you that you don't want to air in public, we're also here for that, just to say. So if I just go along the line and ask people to introduce themselves.
Good evening, I'm David Browning, I'm the District Commander for Southend.
Good evening, my name is David Walpole. I work for Essex Fire. I'm the Group Manager for the South East, which incorporates Southend, Lee, Rochford and Shoebury.
Good evening, I'm Leighton Hammett and I'm the South Essex Policing Commander, so I have policing responsibility for Southend, Castle Point, Rochford and Basildon.
Good evening, I'm Simon Ford, I'm Head of Community Safety at Southend City Council, so I'm responsible for largely the Council's Community Safety Unit and CCTV.
Thanks very much. So just a couple of words really from me. You're probably aware, we take Southend very, very seriously. It is the biggest conurbation in the county. We have a particular summer operation here called Operation Union from the policing perspective to make sure that we are trying to keep on top of the extra summer activity that you get from your tourist influx, and that is always a challenge, and there are always people who want to come here to do things. I have to say, I used to come here for a couple of weeks in the summer when I was a teen as well, but I didn't do some of the things that some people do on the Southend seafront. I just had fun, but it is possible to have a great deal of fun here. We have really been trying to invest and get into a better place to reduce crime and to keep people safe from fire and rescue hazards across the county. Over the last few years, we've expanded Essex Police by 905 officers. So it's now bigger than it's ever been, 3,755, compared with about 2,850 8 years ago. And we've also been investing pretty heavily into the fire and rescue service, particularly around fire protection work, which is very, very relevant to you here in Southend. I know we've done some really good work around the high-rise blocks that you have here in Southend, making sure that they are safer and have some sprinkler systems that have been installed. We've certainly done the reviews of cladding in the light of the Grenfell inquiry. So some good work being done there, and I think we have seen a good trend in terms of reduction in the number of fires and reduction in the number of people coming to harm in fire. We have got some new challenges in fire and rescue, particularly around flooding. We've just seen the rain that we've been having across the country in the last few days, really. Climate change is a challenge, and we have more to do, I think, in terms of understanding how to keep people safe from flooding. And perhaps less relevant to Southend, we also have the challenge of field fires and open space fires, as we have more extremes of heat in the summer as well. So those are things that we're coming to grips with. We're also going to be investing, I think, in the next few years in new technologies to make sure we can deal with the new hazards which come with the electrification of transport, whether that's e-scooters or e-bikes or e-cars, or indeed the hydrogen vehicles which are likely to be on our roads carrying heavier loads, the big trucks which seem to be going in that direction. So there's some stuff we're going to be doing to invest in there. We're just putting together now our new police and crime plan and our new fire and rescue plan. They will last for the next 4 years. Hopefully you've seen those. They've been online. We've been out a public survey on them. I hope you've given us some input on that. So I'm anticipating that really what we're talking about this evening is more about the detail of what's going on here in Southend and the issues that you have, and maybe we'll hear some things that we don't know about, in which case that will be extremely valuable to be able to take those away and see what we can do about them. Maybe there'll be some issues that we are actually addressing that we can just help explain what we're doing about them. But that's probably enough really, I think, in terms of my framing comments, just to get us started. I'm really eager, we're all really eager to hear what it is that is on your minds and on your hearts, frankly. So please, can I ask who's... we've got a microphone. As I say, it's being recorded, so it's really useful if you do use the mic, so that people who want to view it later. We do get several hundred people who actually watch these things when they're recorded online. So I would appreciate it if you would use the microphone, please. Glenn, who's first?
Certainly, this gentleman here has got his hand up.
Thank you. Panel, from speaking with my neighbours in part of Pritterwell, there's a lot of concern. So a simple question is how many arrests have been made in the last 3 months for cyclists and e-scooters riding on the pavements in the city, please? Because I think this will answer the question that many people ask me in my neighbourhood. Thank you.
So your concern is about illegal use of e-scooters?
Yeah, that's it.
Is that something you can pick up on?
Yeah. Good evening. I think very few. And I think that's probably the nature of your question, really. I think that the crux of it is that you want to see more, or you want to see more policing activity to quell it, to reduce it down, because it is a bit of a nuisance. And sometimes, I don't think in Essex, but correct me if I'm wrong, there have been instances where people have been run over by them and some serious injury caused. So I do accept that you probably aren't seeing any policing activity towards that. I can't give you a definitive figure, but I would estimate not very many at all.
Well, to extend that, most of the people I speak to in a lot of elderly people, and they tell me of all sorts of things. They see people whizzing up and down the pavements on these e-scooters, but also you've got people who are riding up just ordinary bicycles on the road, on the pavement, on the road, and their children lifts on the luggage racks as well. So it's a situation I think that's worsening.
Yeah, and I don't think Southend's any different to anywhere across the country,
not, no.
But and I think we have to, police-wise, we have to cut our cloth accordingly. So there's various operations that we've got ongoing that would probably be worthwhile trying to target that in your area. So I can certainly suggest that to my community policing inspector to increase that, because it may sound quite a mundane type thing, but it's not. For the people that live there, it's certainly not, is it? And the risk that is carried with it could be quite impactful, couldn't it?
Well, that's right. Especially if you've got all the elderly people that use these cyclist type frames, they can't get out of the way quick enough. And
we've all seen cyclists that go from stopping at a red light, they'll go onto the pavement just to get across the light, then back onto the road again, which are just avoiding the red light, really, isn't it? So there's risks there.
Yes, that's right. I think the residents I talk with, they're more concerned with people actually on the pavements rather than on the roads. I mean, if they want to kill themselves on the roads, that's their problem. But it's the pavements really they're really concerned about.
Take got
and that's in an area around Southend Hospital, that part of Pritterwell.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe ask Simon to come in. Simon.
Yeah, I was just going to add, we've got what's called a public space protection order that operates primarily in the high street of Southend, so it doesn't extend out towards Pritterwell, but that can enforce against cycling in the high street. So we haven't, as Dave said, done arrests as such, but we have done some enforcement this year, certainly, some sort of targeted work where we've given out fixed penalty notices to those in the high street. There is discussion about whether we extend that PSPO geography for the whole of the city, but again, it would be how would we meet the enforcement of that with the resources we've got. So for the moment, we've targeted the PSPO for cycling and e-scooters in the high street area, and we have done enforcement against those that we've seen.
Thank you.
So a lady at the back has... and then we'll,
Regarding the high street and these e-scooters, my sister was a victim of somebody ploughing into her from behind on an e-scooter, and apart from trying to look at all the CCTV, nothing was actually done, and she's still terrified, and she's still having trouble with her eyesight as a result of the accident. So I think it's very important that we get this sorted out as soon as possible.
I think you make a very good point. We actually had a fatality in Harlow, someone being hit by an e-scooter. We've only had one fatality so far in the county, as far as I'm aware, but that's one too many. There are trials sponsored by the government going on. They were supposed to report last December, but they got extended because the evidence was deemed to be inconclusive so far. And there's a bit of a problem with the people who are using e-scooters legally as part of the trials. We've got one in Chelmsford, which is going, and of course people using them illegally in other parts of the county and blurring the lines. Where is the incidence happening? I went down to Bristol to see an example of where it works really well. The pedestrianised centre of Bristol has e-scooter and e-bike lanes, and frankly everyone's living pretty happily together. It really was, I could see it worked, yeah? But we haven't got anything, we haven't got the ability to do that, I don't think, in pretty much any of our cities in Essex, because that's the old docklands of Bristol, and it's got big, wide areas that you can do that sort of thing with. I'm not quite sure how you can make that work in Southend. We really need that government data to come back to tell us how dangerous these things are. Anecdotally, when I talk to the people in our roads policing department and to the Safe British Road Partnership, the incidence of injury per travelled kilometre, per travelled mile is huge, and it looks really risky. From that perspective, I'd ban e-scooters, and I'd register e-bikes, because they're easily powerful enough to travel at speeds of well over 25 miles an hour, much faster than perhaps not a sports. An Olympic athlete can probably go faster, but most people ride their normal bicycle at less than 25 miles an hour. E-bikes, I think we can work out how to work with on the roads. If we can just have them registered like a motor scooter, that would work. But I'm really struggling to see how we're going to get e-scooters to work in cities like Southend or Chelmsford or Colchester. It just doesn't seem to work.
Sorry, sir. We'll take.
Can we come to you later? Sorry.
Yeah, we'll come to you later, sir. Yes, it's this lady here who's next, then the gentleman there, then the gentleman there.
Thank you, Roger. I'm actually one of the local councillors for this area, for this ward. And I get a lot of complaints, especially from elderly, frail, young mums with buggies, regarding the increased numbers we're seeing of e-scooters in this part of Southend. So my question, there's a kind of like 2 points to this. So what these people are actually asking, what they need to understand is, what are the legalities with, say somebody buys their 18-year-old son an e-scooter, what do they need to have to ensure that that e-scooter is legal to be on the road?
No.
That's my first question, thank you.
Okay, so you are not part of the government trials here in Southend, so there is no legal use of an e-scooter on the pavement or the road in Southend. You can buy them, but you have to use them on private land.
Okay. Because it's related.
If it's related.
It's related, yeah. Sorry.
That's fine. Second question, we've got a lot of people.
Yeah, sorry, I'll be quick. So the second question, which is related, some of these residents that have reached out to me, they're not all frail. Some of them are actually people that drive, and their concerns are that they've had some near misses with e-scooters on the roads. So basically what they've asked is, if there's an accident and it's caused by the e-scooter, who's liable? Thank you.
You know, I'm not going to answer that one because that's going to depend so much on the circumstances. I've had a frack myself. But I live in Brentford. I'm just driving down the road near home, not particularly well lit. Person in black on black e-scooter pulls off pavement in front of me. You think, whoa! I'm glad I spotted them just in time. Really high risk. There'll be the usual application of were you paying due care and attention? Were you applying the usual rules of the road? Because it's not automatic that it's going to be the e-scooter's fault. Yeah. You want to
Just very quickly.
we'll ask an expert actually.
Just on the e-scooter bit, obviously you've heard about the situation here in Southend, but I think there's something education-wise that needs to go out to parents, so they understand that they're illegal to buy their children. I don't think that's as widely known amongst our communities, so there will be people that are intent on using them that we can deal with through our policing powers and we can target, or through Simon's team in terms of enforcement around penalty notices. But actually, there's probably people that are using them unaware of the fact that it's illegal. And we could probably take the percentage usage down, working with our partners in media, word of mouth, just to make sure that the message is spread. So that I've made a note to think about how we can maybe get that education piece out there a little bit better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gentleman here, then you sir, and then the gentleman at the front.
Thank you. Councillor Allen, for the award. My thing is nitrous oxide canisters. I have a lot of various community groups out. We like the gardens, we find some there, and the big one is Nitrous League, who I'm actually having up tomorrow. We found 112 industrial-sized gas canisters 1 week, and then after that, next time we did a pick, and there's 88 gas canisters. We're finding them all over Tutri Island. I know your force is doing roles around there. I've been updated, so thank you for that. But there's anything we can do just mostly to stop these things being used, because obviously I worry more about people using this gas and getting high or whatever it does. Because I know it's now a Class C drug, but it's just people are probably using this and because they drive down there, they're also driving back. So it's kind of just one of those concerning things. Have you got any thoughts on that?
Can I just ask how because of course that law came in 9 months ago, making them illegal. Across most of the county, we've seen a big drop in use. Is this recently?
Not in where we used to find hardly any. It's actually got worse.
In that case, I'm going to hand over to an expert.
This is Tutri Island.
Yeah.
So obviously I think it's quite secluded. People go there and think they can use it, but they literally find. I can show you pictures actually if you like, or you can follow the group. There's hundreds of them, and we have to leave them with the waste centre down there. Because they don't even know how to get rid of them as well, because there's still actually no actual way to get rid of them properly.
I agree. I did actually see that email and I saw those photographs, and I did see, was it a Cub Scout group that did the collection or Nitrous?
Nitrous is just a community group. Anyone can go, so it's on tomorrow if anyone wants to come during 9.
I did see that.
Get the plug in, go on.
Plug in there.
It's really worthwhile, but it's certainly something that that is on my radar. I spoke to my community policing inspector about this very topic last week, and it's something that we do want to to drive out, because it is dangerous, and without being too stereotypical, I think the age range of people using them are probably about 17 to 20, roughly. So driving age people that have got access to these canisters, and it could be catastrophic, the actual injury that's caused, and paralysis and things like that. So certainly something I'd like to stamp out, but my ward officer has been given that task, and hopefully you've seen the increase in patrols, because that was in response to that email that we did. I think it may well have been through the MP's office.
I haven't quite a lot about it, but you have responded, which I'm very grateful.
Yeah, no, by all means,
keep
keep sending it in, and hopefully you've seen the patrols that have increased, and hopefully that's had a knock-on effect to reduce it down. But again, I think it's an education thing. It's that age group of people, I really don't think they understand just how dangerous these things are, and it's Class C for a reason.
So if we can exchange details at the end of it.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Can I also just add, regarding the litter from the canisters, you always, I appreciate you do it through Nitrous League, which I think is great, and we've got a number of those voluntary groups, but also you can go via My Southend if you're seeing big deposits of them, and our waste disposal people can come and will dispose of them correctly. So always use that avenue as well.
Perfect, thank you.
Gentleman here, then the gentleman there, and then the gentleman at the front. And then the lady there.
Good evening, gentlemen. I've got this right? Can you hear me?
Yeah, just
good evening. I'm a local resident in Nelson Road in Lee. Some of our local residents in Nelson Road are very concerned. One of the turning right sign, which is in fact turned left at the top of Nelson Road into London Road. Many cars turn right, and some of the residents are concerned, particularly when the children at Shotwell Park School. And also, keeping it very simple, the speeding down Nelson Road, down towards the Manchester Drive and the post office, is excessive speed. Why can we not have one camera situated at the top of Nelson Road to stop people turning right when it's a left turn, when they're in fact breaking the law? And secondly, a speed camera to stop people excessive speeding down on Nelson Road, which can cause a potential accident.
So it's probably one for Simon and for you if you want. Do you want to go first, or shall I go straight to Simon?
Simon first.
There you go. In terms of highways authority stuff.
Yeah, I wasn't quite aware of that one, so what I will do is we haven't got any highways colleagues here from the council, but I've taken a note of that in the area, and I will pass. Yes.
Can I come back on that? If you're not aware, I have reported it to the police on several occasions, and I didn't want to say this in front of the public, but some of the officers have just ignored it. And it is a great shame.
Okay, from a council point of view, what I'll do is I've taken a note of it and I'll just pass on to my colleagues in highways, because we can encourage things like mobile speed guns to be used in that area by Essex Police, so we can use that route. But I will pass on to my colleagues in highways and take note if they've had previous reports from yourself and others with regard to that. If there's seeming to be quite substantive evidence that it's becoming a real issue, then myself and Dave can take that away and have a discussion about how we might respond to it.
Yeah, briefly. Just quickly, that's disappointing to hear that the officers haven't really been that helpful towards it. I receive probably one or two similar requests for that type of thing probably each week, and my response would be to send officers there, not just as a one-off but as a bit more of a longer term approach, but that's something that I can take away. Can I take your details afterwards?
Yes, of course, I would be grateful, and I do apologise for criticising at this meeting, but it is just a shame because I have great pride in the police, and you do a wonderful job, but it has come to the attention on a couple of occasions when it's been ignored.
You're right to flag it, so thank you.
That's what these meetings are for. Thank you.
Very much so. Gentleman here, then
You were down to the front.
gentleman at the front, and then it's the lady there.
Well, good evening. I think we've already introduced myself, but very quickly. My name is Clyde Saunders. I'm a resident in St Luke's Ward in Southend. Been active with LCM meetings for about 20 odd years, so you know there's a good understanding of what goes on. With some of the complaints, I think you know these guys should be going to the LCMs, which should be pretty well advertised. I know it's not done on the Southend Dispatch, which also comes to this meeting I just discussed with earlier.